Okay. Good morning. Happy Halloween. Can't believe it's already October 31st.
At the end of the year or last quarter.
Yeah, last quarter of the year. My goodness. I mean, tomorrow, Saturday, we are already on the 1st of November. Can't believe how quick this year has definitely come. So I have the honor and the privilege of having Mr. Jim Zappulla. How you doing, sir?
Good, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So let's go right into it. Jim, tell us a little bit of the history and how you got into real estate. So let's go back in time and let us know a little bit of why you chose real estate, your career path, how you became one of the top agents here in the South Bay and the Palos Verdes, and now with South Bay.
Well, it has a lot to do with my mother. My mother started uh, real estate back in the early 60s.
Okay.
Started with Arthur Finch Properties. Actually started with Califano Realty first in San Pedro, and then went to Arthur Finch Properties. It was the first office, real estate office in Rancho Palos Verdes in Mira Leste. So she wanted me to get into real estate, and I was already kind of real estate in back east, selling property in the Adirondack Mountains. But that was with my friend who was his personal land, and we learned how to fly airplanes and fly up there and sold property. My mother didn't like planes. I decided to come out to Palos Verdes because she was working there and she wanted me to see Palos Verdes, and that's how it all started. Went to
So
Anthony
so
School.
so you're saying your mom came to California first.
Yeah, my mother came to California first.
Okay.
My uncle was in the Navy in Long Beach, and they moved half of our family out here from Providence, Rhode Island, and
Yeah.
Connecticut to actually Wilmington at first, then Carson, and then Palos Verdes.
Wonderful. Okay. And what year was this?
That was in the early 70s, maybe early, a bit late 60s, early 70s. So I was licensed in 79.
79.
Yes,
So you've been licensed since 1979.
since 1979.
Wow. Wow. How was real estate back in the late 70s into the 80s?
Well, it was a one-page contract back then. And we had to actually go to three boards. We had to go to the Palos Verdes board, we had to go to the San Pedro board, and we had to go to the Torrance board to get the pullouts for the new listings. Remember, there was no computers back then. So we individually picked somebody from the office to go get these hot sheets. And from the hot sheets, we would learn about the new listings and then we would pass them on to our clients. And all three boards were driven on Friday. You had to go to all three boards to find out the new listings for the weekend.
Interesting. So back then, obviously no computers. So every Friday, the MLS and all the new listings would come.
They would actually print out pullout sheets. And then there was a book. The Palos Verdes, whatever board that you belong to, had their own separate real estate book. Palos Verdes had theirs, Torrance had theirs. Uh, San Pedro had just San Pedro just basically just had a pullout. So because they were trying to be in with the Palos Verdes board. But that's the way we used to find our listings and work on our listings, believe it or not.
Interesting. Yeah. I started in mid 90s and we still we still were in the book. So every Friday, um, the MLS would come in and all of the top agents would go into the boiler room because that's where the list of all the active properties were. We when we transitioned, this was late 90s. That's when it was Lightning. I don't know if you remember Lightning,
Yes, I remember Lightning.
so it was a dial tone type, and it was kind of like a DOS program, not what we see now. So
Very interesting and very difficult in back then. Today, with all our modern technology and the advantage of going on a computer and keeping up, and with all the computer programs of notifying you about new listings, because if you didn't actually work back then, you weren't making sales because you didn't know what was listed and when it was listed, and you had to go to every broker's open house that there was. So broken houses were a must back then. uh, open houses were a must on weekends, and that's how I got started in the business.
Well, let's go back to the 80s because I think it's interesting for the audience to kind of know how real estate was then. And what I mean was when you join a real estate company, because we didn't have the technology, it was all about picking up the phone and cold calling, right? So how did you get to the level of where you're at now? But who was the major mentor or who inspired you to push hard to become very successful in real estate?
Well, to be in real estate, you have to be hungry. You
Yeah,
have to be ambitious. You have to be determined to survive this this
industry.
career. This career is very difficult. People think it's very easy, but it's very, very difficult. Back then, I actually was leaning over people's shoulder, not like the advantages that we have today now with all of our classes with Keller Williams. And the top producers back then didn't want to tell you what they were doing because they didn't want you to interfere with their sales. So you had to get out there and learn. I remember looking over this agent's shoulder. He says, "Hey, could you step back a little bit? You're crowding my space." But I looked over his shoulder. I did everything I could to learn. And, of course, I was like a sponge back then because I wanted to learn. I was inspired to learn. After you make your first sale, you get very inspired to learn more. So getting that check very, very much helped. And it starts your career. Now you choose to do, yourself. If you going to be successful, you have to work at this job. If you're going to be lackadaisy, you're just going to roll with the flow. But to be a top producer, you have to have a lot of ambition and you have to think outside the box. You have to sell single family residents when single family residents are sold, income property when the houses slow down. You have to be diversified in this business because if not, if you don't have a paycheck coming in, you can't pay the bills.
Yeah, no, 100%. Um, it really stems with me because how I learned real estate was the basics. Go out there and start connecting with people. And at the time, I was a little uncomfortable doing so. One, I didn't know the industry, I didn't know the process, I didn't know contracts. But as you said, Jim, you just got to put yourself out there. You're going to make errors, you're going to make mistakes, but you learn from those mistakes. And I think that's how we grow.
Here's how I did it. I dressed up to the tens. I went knocking. I started with businesses because they were the first easy one because they were always open. I used to knock on doors when I used to sell another product, AAA, back in Connecticut. Very good at cold calling. But I said to myself, well, let me start with businesses. So I would get up at about 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would start in San Pedro and Port Call, and I work all the business in Port Call, all of San Pedro, and all of Pacific Coast Highway, all the way up to the beach. And when I finished, I started over again. Kept not walking in businesses, giving them my card, and my first sale was a dry cleaners.
Right, Clint?
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, the first commercial sale was a dry cleaners. Didn't make that much, but I put the dry cleaning, started learning the dry cleaning business, and then of course that led to other things. And I walked in the dry cleaners and met Chuck Norris, and he used to bring his clothes there. And then it was over by the carousel, Top Hat Cleaners. It was a long time ago at the bottom of Crenshaw and Hawthorne Boulevard, bottom of Crenshaw and PCH rather. So
Most agents don't do commercial immediately. They usually do residential single, and you got the opportunity to do a
when you're hungry, you do anything to make the money. So
yep.
that was the easiest because I walk into businesses and they want to know what I'm doing and I'm all dressed up and they don't really know why I'm there until they start talking to me. And I'm saying I'm investigating, just got my real estate license. And if you know anybody that wants to buy or sell your homes. So I was asking for home sales, walking into the businesses. as well, but I end up selling the dry cleaners.
Well, one thing that I know about you, Jim, in the years that I've known you, you're the people person. You're easy to open up a conversation, icebreaker, and I've seen you in action. Literally, every conversation you have, inside or outside of doing business, you always have a conversation that leads to a real estate conversation. And then what do? You pass your business card.
That's my business card. If you don't have a personality and if you don't like people, this is the wrong business to get in because
Yeah.
you, just like everybody else, that you have to work this and you have to do the ups and downs. People have emotions and they bring their emotions into this business. Everybody has witnessed this before, and we've had hard times and people change their minds, and you have to cope with all of this emotional stuff going on in real estate. So we try to keep the emotions out of it. I keep every little emotion out of my sales as much as I can from my buyers or my sellers because my sales go much smoother then.
So let's pivot into how you niched into PV and became one of the top recognized agents up in the Hill.
Uh, I first worked for Grant Realty. My mother ended up moving from Archer Finch, and she moved to Grant Realty, and we opened up an office on an Academy Center there, and first worked for her and doing open houses. So open houses, my first open house I sold in 1 week. It was actually the broker's brother's house on Grand Via Altamira. So so the whole open house, I was successful. I made my first sale, and then I just wanted to hold open houses. So if you're not out there lead generating, if you do open houses, the buyers are walking in. Do as many open houses as you can. That's what I have to say to new agents is do as many open houses as you can. There's people out there that'll let you hold their open house. So get busy working. If you don't, you're not going to sell anything. It's hard out there. Now today we have the advantage of Zillow, and we have the advantage of Realtor.com and other systems that lead generate. But most of these programs are all taken up by these realtors because that's the only way to get leads if you're not holding open houses, if you're not knocking on doors, if you're not doing direct mail. So you have to do one of these things or all three of them to be successful.
100%. But what I like about you, Jim, is not that, yes, I love the fact that open houses, if you don't like cold calling, door knocking, farming, do consistent open houses. But it's also knowing how to convert, right? So as soon as someone comes in, that's an opportunity. And that opportunity is to ask the right questions. And you're really good at doing that.
Yeah, the way you greet people, you don't try to try to sell everybody that you see. You try to offer. People respond to you much better when you're trying to give them something other than trying to take from them. Especially when you knock on doors. When I go and knock on doors, I have a plan. And so the plan is I knock on doors. I don't ask them for the listing. I said, I'm not here to list your house. I'm here to find out if you need a handyman or you need some kind of home services. Because I'm a realtor in the neighborhood, I have people that work for me constantly because they sell houses. We paint them before we sell them, or we paint them after we sell them, or we do corrections on houses. So I have people that work with me. Today, we're just knocking on doors, seeing if you have a broken gate. And I've actually paid for some of the little repairs that people had when I knocked on doors and actually got listings from it. So there's got to be a way that you have to think of how you do your business. But giving is is more productive than asking. You'll get far when you offer somebody something other than ask them to sell their house.
You said something that really resonates with me, Jim, is that you're not really necessarily selling real estate. You're providing a service. And the service is, because you have so many connections with different types, handymans, plumbers, It's a value proposition that you're giving, and that kind of hones in the opportunities that maybe not at the moment, but in the near future, they're going to remember and think, Jim was the one that gave me, this handyman to do a fence repair, right? And when they're thinking about either selling their home or looking into investing or buying their next property, they're going to think about you.
People appreciate when you stop and you drop off stuff. I mean, look at our title agents. That's how they survive this business. Is they used to bring in their notepads and or they bring something to eat or they sponsor a dinner. Uh, People remember how generous you are, and and being generous is a good thing because people want to give back to you. So that's the way this world actually goes round. So giving people and knowing your business, or you could actually give them a piece of paper, say, hey, this is your to end sales. Uh, they might want to be interested in what's going on in their neighborhood as far as home sales are concerned. You have to be the professional. First of all, you don't try to bring up real estate first. You try to offer them something. And if they don't have any handyman services, then you offer them your business, your knowledge of your business. Here's what's sold on your street. Here's what's sold around the corner. Then they look at you as the professional neighborhood. Now, the whole thing is you got to follow up.
Yeah.
That's why they came out with the 33 touch program. That was genius by Gary Keller. Is if you don't follow up, your people forget you and then they move on. So you gotta make a presence, and then you got to keep a presence by following up.
100%. Yeah. Love that. Let's touch a little bit on what year was the most successful year for you.
So I started off. I started off early in the mornings. Once I got going, and I used to go to projects because I used to build houses back in Connecticut myself. So I was a journeyman carpenter, and so I went into and I did all the new developments. So I would stop at builders, the places that were being constructed, and I would bring them coffee and donuts. And of course, they say, "Hey, I've already got to list this property with somebody else." I said, "It doesn't matter. I'm just here to meet you and just keep an eye on your project because maybe someday I'll have a buyer for you." And he says, "You're not going to get the listing." I said, "That's okay." So I drop off the coffee and donuts. So they show up 3 days later, and he says, "I told you you're not going to get the listing." He thinks I'm bringing him coffee and donuts to con him to get the listing. I said, "No, I'm just bringing you the coffee and donuts because I want to keep an eye on your new project here. I think this new house is going to be very, very nice, and I want to be the first one to show a client if I have a new home buyer." I did that in with a couple of builders, and guess what? One called me up. He had tired of me coming to his project. He says, "You find me the lot, I'll build a house. You can sell it." And that's my big success was I started working with builders, started started marketing all the lots in Palos Verdes. I was the number one lot person when I first started real estate. So all the vacant land that was available in Palos Verdes, they were get monthly. I would touch them monthly to get the listings. I've sold about 25 lots in Palos Verdes and built those 25 houses with the builders. So that was the beginning of my success. And then working with builders, they have other projects going. And so a builder got in and he did a repair for Bank of America asset management department. Then that's when my life changed back in 85, 86. Uh, he redid this building called High Point Condominiums down in Camino Real and Redondo Beach, 43 units. They were condo conversions, and somebody who put all straw buyers in there. It wasn't successful. They started to foreclose, and I ended up getting the listing from Bank of America. and sold those 43 units. And that was my first sale and career, starting with Bank of America, who I represented for 15 years after that, doing all the foreclosures. So that's the
Interesting.
second part of
Yeah.
going with the builders. So one thing leads to another. So you just got to keep working.
Yeah. You just keep pushing forward, right?
Right.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. I know, and we shared a story too that you were involved in a real estate transaction that had to do with a sports athlete up in PV,
Yes.
NFL.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, I was actually started in Redondo Beach. I listed a property on Juanita, and Howie Long walked in.
How we long?
Yes, Howie Long.
Yeah.
Howie Long walked in and actually bought the house. And then, of course, didn't want to live in Redondo Beach too much because the fans were breaking down his door and driving down the street. So he ended up buying a home on Strawberry Lane. And Strawberry Lane, the same thing happened. And then we had to sell Strawberry Lane, and we put him behind finally put him behind the gates. So through that, I met Jerry Robinson, Lyle Alzado, with a lot of the Raiders back then. So I worked with Jerry Robinson, Lyle Alzado, and a couple of the other Raiders. I worked with the LA Express. I seem to be getting these sports figures. You know, once you know somebody, they actually give you leads. You're asking, does anybody want to buy a house? You know anybody? Well,
Yeah.
I have my friend over here, and he wants to rent first, but then he wants to buy. So one thing leads into another. So
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's an awesome story. And now the Raiders are in Las Vegas.
yeah, now they're in Las Vegas.
And then Howie Long is now with a sports
I
entertainer.
think he's still with Fox.
Yeah,
Yeah. He moved to actually Missouri, and I think he's still in Missouri. I'm not sure. Um, I don't keep in touch with him anymore. His numbers have changed, of course. But I mean, if I really had to get a hold of him, I probably can. But because we're actually good friends. So, and he also worked with Larry Moore too. So Larry Moore and myself were actually his realtors. So from Larry Moore and Associates, but uh, yeah. Then I actually walked in and listed Janie Buss's house from the Lakers, and ended up meeting a lot of people from the Lakers through Janie Buss, and so and we were fortunate to have Bob Berry work in my real estate office. He used to be the coach of the LA Kings, so we did sell Rogie Vacone and Marcel Dion their houses in Empty Saddle Club. So
very cool.
the sports people were already in my office when I first walked in there was a bunch of people speaking French, and I asked my mother, I said, who are these people? She says, those are the LA Kings. I actually had about 7 players of the LA Kings in my real estate office. So Bob Berry and his wife worked in my real estate office in Grant Realty back in the day. And Bob was coach of the LA Kings, so I mean he had his license, but his wife or ex-wife worked in our office. She handled a lot of the players.
Got it. Throughout your real estate career, Jim, what transaction was one of the toughest one that you were able to navigate and ultimately get the deal done?
Okay.
And I know you probably have a lot of different ones, but one that comes to mind that was like, man, this was a tough transaction, but we got through it.
Well, I opened up United REO back in the late 90s. And one of our trained asset managers moved to Cheshire, Connecticut, went to work for Bank of Boston. Uh, at that time, um, the golf course was built. And so the 18th hole fell into the golf course. And Mike Arman, who was Larry Arman's son, uh, worked for Bank of Boston. And they said, Mike, you live in Rolling Hills. So they put him in charge of the golf course. So at that time, Donald Trump, there was like 60 days left and before foreclosure. before Bank of Boston foreclosed on the property, and he backed out of the transaction. So they called me and they asked me to raise $26 million. So of course that was very, very difficult. I called my builder up. That's the first person I called because all of his investors. And after about 30 days, we raised about $22 million.
Wow.
And so, but that still wasn't enough. And Trump's attorneys were putting pressure on the bank. Um, so they just said, hey, let's give him another couple of weeks to close it. And he actually closed it for, I think, around to 22 million or in that area, that the money that we raised. We raised actually about 22 million for the golf course. And but Trump ended up closing it. So that was probably one of my toughest transactions, because we really worked on that. And I was very, very excited, uh, to try to sell that golf course, that's an icon sale, so, but I was unsuccessful, but I forced the sale. So, they actually paid me for it. Bank of Boston sent me a check for my time, and I didn't get a lot, but I got paid.
You got
So,
paid for your
so I
services.
got my pay for my services. So it was kind of worth it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's awesome, Jim. All right, as we wrap it up, what advice would you give the younger version of Jim?
I would tell them, first of all, if you're going to have this business, you're going to have to be patient. You're going to have resilience. You're going to have to put one in escrow and be determined to put four more in escrow and not stop. You know, once you don't want to have that, you want to have that second piece of property in escrow before you close your first one, because you're going to get spoiled by your first sale. You're going to get all this money, and then, it's either going to stop or it's going to go forward. So you choose your own path. You need to go out there and pound the pavements, do open houses, uh, learn systems. The millennials have all these different opportunities now, especially social media, TikTok and this and that. That's the new way of doing things, but you must change and you must adapt.
Yeah,
And that's what I learned to do, is change and adapt to get into the social media part of it, and do what's everybody else is doing to make sales. So, and that's how you become, you become popular and you become successful.
yeah. People start knowing who you are, right? When you're
Right.
out there, um, working, networking, hosting open houses, putting yourself on social media, and
We do videos of all of our open houses. We do live videos. We post them on Instagram. I have a very good manager that's doing that for my company right now. Uh, she's amazing. So we do a lot of social media on the day that we're holding open houses. While we're doing open houses, we're just keep pounding away. So
yeah,
having a good website is helpful, very helpful too. So
sure, yeah, no, 100%. In the next 2 months, November and December, what's the plan to close
the
out the year?
the plan is to keep on holding open houses right now. Interest rates are falling, so you need to get out there and start contacting. You have a good excuse to call all your clients right now. They just reduced it another 25 basis points in December. It appears that they're going to drop again. Don't wait. Start doing the mailers. You have an excuse to contact your sphere of influence. You have an excuse to contact your farm. The interest rates are falling. The market's going to get busy again for sure. We're hoping for a more active 2026, because we might be dealing with interest rates in the fours and the fives. And if that happens, the real estate market's going to be very, very, very active. So.
Yeah. And then just last word of advice for the audience.
Well, stay healthy, work out, eat well, and sell real estate. Hold those open houses.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming in and having a conversation with me and obviously with the
Thank
audience
you.
as
I want
well.
to wish everybody happy holidays and happy Halloween and um, have a safe and blessed holiday, everybody.
Absolutely. And go Dodgers.
Go Dodgers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
Thank you,
Thank
Jim.
you so
This was
Thank
much.
you,
really
guys.
Thank you,
amazing. We
Jim.
Fantastic.
appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you. Be safe out there. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Uh,